Class, welcome to Econ 102. This is spring semester 2021, um, and this presentation is about Appendix 1, tutorial about how using graphs and formulas. If you are confident you know how to do it and you don't need any help, you can totally skip this. But if you are struggling, you're not familiar with it, maybe you're new to this, please stick around. The next 15 minutes can help you with your homework, help you understand what we're going to be doing this semester because we're going to be using graphs a lot during our class. So you want to make sure that you really are comfortable reading and understanding. Once again, this is just a basic tutorial, just going to give you an idea as what to look for, how to build basic charts, and how to use those in PowerPoint, Excel, or Word documents. So when you're doing your homework or when we're discussing this in class, you are familiar with it. Okay, so let's talk Appendix 1, using graphs and formulas. First thing that we need to answer is why are we even talking about this? There are a couple of reasons, and one, let's remember that graphs help us to illustrate key ideas in economic textbooks on website. They're everywhere, whether it's a magazine, a newspaper, a website, everybody's using graphs because they simplify our economic ideas and they also make those ideas concrete so we can apply them to real problems in real life. So, for example, where you work, your boss is having an issue with parking. Maybe you can put everything on a graph and say, you know what, this is the issue that we have with parking, and if we do these quick changes, it'll help us. So having those graphs can help you do a presentation where it's going to grab people's attention and they can understand it easier. The other reason is we know that in economic, business, and policy issues can be complicated. You know, like the economic in the United States is so big that if we were to collect data, and it will still be here for a long time. So by using graph can help us cut through all those complications and just highlight what the key relationship is between those different different variables that we're looking at it, and can help us understand the issue and present real solutions. Here is one picture I took from the textbook, and on this one we can see two different types of graph. We have a bar graph on the left and a pie chart on the right, and these help us understand, for example, what's going on with the market share of U.S. automobile. So on this one we can see that U.S. firms like GMC and Ford, they dominate the market with 45.6, and we can see the Japanese firms like Toyota, Nissan, they are very close, 38.2% of the market share. European firms like BMW, Mercedes-Benz, Porsche are at 9.4, and then finally Korean firms are at 6.8. Just by looking at this, you can see that no one firm controls the market, like has most of the market, right? The closest one is the United States firms at 45.6, and then we can see the difference between the U.S. firms and the Korean firms is very big. So just by looking at that, we can see that without actually having to look at the numbers. So that is the reason why we use graphs. So how would you use graphs on PowerPoint? And if you're using any of the Microsoft products, it's pretty much the same whether you're using this on Excel, PowerPoint, or Word document. In this case, you go right over here where it says Insert Chart, or you can also go here and go click Insert, and then you go here, Chart, and you can choose the type of chart that you want. Let's say that we want to do a column, so we click on Column here, and then it's asking us what type of column we want to use, and let's say that we want to use the 3D stacked column. So we click on that one. And once you do that, an Excel document is going to open like this. On this case, we're only using one variable, so we're going to delete these series 2 and 3. So we just highlighted those, click the delete on our keyboard, and they're gone. And let's say these are sales, and then you want to do the month. So you started in October, tracking, see how many sales you've done this year or in the last few months. So start October. So good thing about this is you highlight October, you grab this little corner right here, and then you drag it down and it automatically fills it up for you because the system knows that after October comes November and so on and so forth. So let's say that in October you actually sold 35 vehicles. In November you sold 47. In December you had a really good month because they had those big end of the year sale and everything else. So you end up selling 76 vehicles. January is usually a slow month because people is out of money and nobody's buying anything. They spend all the money on Christmas, so they don't have any money. On this case, January, you only sold 22 vehicles. Okay, so you put your data there, you fill out the months, you put your data, then you close this chart, and here is your data right over here. I'm gonna make that a little bit bigger so we can see here. All right, so here is our data, so you can compare. Well, January was kind of slow, and compared to December, obviously, but it was even slower than October. So if you do a right click here, you can do add data labels. So you have that data here handy, telling you what you got. But let's say you don't like this type of chart, so you go right over here and you say, you know what? I'm just gonna change the chart type, and I want to do a pie because pie looks better. So you go to pie, and now here is your pie chart, and then your chart design is gonna open at the top, or you can change it. So you can go and do this one right over here, or maybe this one, and you choose the one that you like. So here you are, see, this is pretty cool because it tells you uh, the numbers, but it also adds the percentages. So 100% of the sales that you made on the last 4 months, you did 42% of those sales, 76, you did those back in December. So you can see that. And then you can do different designs. So let's say you want the numbers on the outside, and that's how you will do that. All right, now let's discuss two variables, and this is what we're going to be doing in our class. So this is mostly where you need to know how to do this. So basically, these graphs reflect the relationship between two variables, which is what we'll be using in class. So we're going to be talking, for example, about how the price of milk, if it goes up, you're going to consume less of it, and all of that stuff. So it is important to understand the relationship of how to graph two variables. So we have our slope, which is the blue line, and represents the relationship between those two variables. So the slope tells us how much of one variable changes as the other variable changes. So for example, if let's say you like to drink chocolate milk, and then the price of the chocolate milk goes up by 10%, you're probably going to consume 5% less of that chocolate milk because the price is higher now. Let's say you kind of like regular milk, but not as much as chocolate milk. So if the price goes up by 10%, you are probably going to consume 15% less. So the relationship is greater because you don't like milk as much as you like regular milk. So on this case, we use the Greek letter delta, which represents the slope, and the formula is the change in value of the vertical axis divided by the change in value of the horizontal axis give us the slope. So tells us how much change we have. So we have the slope equals change in y divided by change in x. Okay, so how would you graph something like that? First, let me get rid of this just because I don't like it there. So I'm just gonna click cut. And then I'm gonna go right over here, click graph, and we're gonna do XY scatter. Let's see here, we can do a line. Let's do a line right here. We can always change that like we talked about it. So we're gonna do a line. We don't want stack, but we want line with markers. So we click on that one. And now once again, our Excel data is gonna open here. And let's see, let's make this a little bit here. So we had it October, October. And then once again, we can just go here and fill that up all the date to January. And let's say now you want to find out what type of cars you sold. And then you have minivans, minivans, and then you sold trucks. Okay, let's see. It'll help if I knew how to spell right. Trucks, and then you have cars, and then you have SUVs. Okay, so in October, let's say you sold 10 minivans, and you sold 15 trucks, and then you sold 4 vehicles, and then you sold 5 SUVs. Okay, and in November, your sales went up, so you sold 11, you sold 17 of these, and you sold 8 cars, and then you sold 10 SUVs. Okay, in December, that's when you had really good sales, so you sold 20 minivans, and you sold 25 trucks, and let's say that you sold 17 cars and 23 SUVs. Your January sales went down, so in this case you only sold 8 minivans, and you sold 5 trucks. And then you sold 6 cars, and because it's snowing, people want SUVs that are 4-wheel drive, and let's say that your sales still went down, but not as bad, so you sold 12 of those, for example. All right, now that we have our data here, we can close this, and now we can see our charting here, and this kind of gives you an idea of how you're doing. You can see here your cars, you can see your SUVs, and you can also reverse that and put them the other way around if you want to look it up by month over month and keep the type of the vehicle fixed. So that will be another option. Let's see here, let's say, and then you want to go ahead and you can also change the chart type, and you can do pie, and here is your data once again. So but if we go back in here, this is the kind of data we're going to be looking at during our classes. All right, just one last thing to finish up. We have to keep in mind that there could be positive and negative relationships. Sometimes the relationship between those variables is negative. So when the price of a good goes up, the consumption of the good goes down. And we sometimes can see that when our income goes up, the consumption of the good can go up. So that relationship can be positive or negative. Again, this was a very short tutorial, just kind of give you the basics of how to get these graphs and how to input the data. If that helped you, good. If you still have any questions, reach out to me. I'll be willing to sit down with you and work and get you familiar with this. All right, thanks class. We'll see you around.